and welcome to the Coffee Chat Etc. podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Cox, and today I'm delighted to welcome Kim Rogers. But before we begin, just a little reminder that today's conversation touches on sensitive subjects, including childhood trauma, abuse and mental health, so please take care of yourself whilst listening. Kim's story is an incredible journey of turning pain into purpose, and from her own experiences of childhood trauma and healing to the work she now does creating safer spaces for children within the dance industry. We talk about finding your voice, understanding your past, healing, and how sometimes our greatest pain can become our greatest purpose. So grab yourself a coffee, get comfy, and let's start. Hi, and welcome Kim, all the way from Clacton-on-Sea in Essex today. Hi Kim, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, me too. We've had a bit of an issue with the rain in the background, but hopefully that will sort itself out in sunny England.
Yes, as per usual, you can never predict the weather. And it decided to start hailing about 5 minutes ago, which is wonderful. Nice for May showers and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Or not. And I hear you're not very well either. So,
no, there's germs going around at the moment. And it's so frustrating because I haven't actually picked up anything in so long. And I literally was with one person the other day that was getting over it. And then that was it. I came down. So we're on the end of it right now, which is why I sound a bit nasally and a bit like throaty. But yeah, it's that time of year, isn't it? Germs, they breed.
It is. But I hear you've got some sun on the way next week. So hopefully that will be good for you.
I believe so. I really, really hope so. I'm looking for it to kind of start picking up now. I go to France in about 6 weeks' time. So I'm just hoping the weather by that point is nice because I need a holiday with sunshine, no rain.
Well, hopefully it's on its way over to you. So Kim, your story is really interesting because you've had quite a lot of experience in life and it's kind of led you down the route of helping others, especially concentrated around their mental health. And we can go into what you're doing now in a second. But I'm just wondering kind of how and why that's really important to you. And what's kind of caused you now to step aside and focus on the mental health of others, especially dancers, because that's obviously your industry. Is there a poignant part where you think that might have triggered you to help others?
Yeah, and I think it happened organically a few years back, but without me realizing that I was pivoting. I think I was doing some work and then I sort of was like, there's more to this. And I think obviously I wouldn't even know where to begin with my story because there's so much to it. But I think if we go back to 2016, so about 10 years ago, I hit a really kind of, I guess, life's bumps in the road, but I hit one that was quite nasty and it kind of took me down for a while. I guess you could call it a breakdown, paired with a bit of burnout. I think I just hit a real low point in life. Realistically, it all came from doing a child protection safeguarding course. And I was doing it because I wanted to get more knowledge for myself, for my own students that I had at the time. And when I was in the course, with every module, it was like a Pandora's box was opening for me. And there was recognition of that. That was me. Another one that was like, that was me too. And I think our brains, our human instincts is so incredible that we tend to shut things down. We tend to lock them away. And then I do believe that at some point in all of our lives, those skeletons are kind of tumble out. And I guess that's kind of what happened for me. So I suppose the last 10 years, I've done so much development on myself and got myself into a really strong place. But it allowed me to reflect and look back on my own childhood. And then it really allowed me to piece together the reasons why I'm so passionate about doing the work I do now. And now I've driven that forward even more. So it's all kind of interlinked,
I think we've already talked about experiences within childhood kind of shape us and create us. And there's something within us then that for the rest of our lives, we're almost searching, yearning for completion of. So I know that I went back and studied as well, and that I learned by it about my experiences, and I could, like you, I was able to kind of match them up and then go on this learning curve. So I think everything's meant for a reason. But can you share with the audience maybe a little bit of your experience as a child and what may have triggered you whilst you were doing this course later on in life?
Yeah. And I totally agree as well. I mean, obviously having studied a lot of it and knowing that, the first 5 years of a child's life is the most important, because your environment, your beliefs, everything like that sets you up for who you become, which I think a lot of people aren't fully aware of, which I love educating people on. But yeah, my childhood I'm a late 70s girl. So I think, we were still in the era. We didn't have social media. We didn't really have computers, all that kind of stuff. Childhood, I guess, was still, in your alleyway or up and down the street on your bike, playing a ball, that kind of thing. But I started dancing from the age of 3. And I was always passionate. I guess I was that kid that was always externally, I don't want to use the word showing off, because I wasn't a kid that did that, but I was just an extravagant, energetic, bubbly kid. And I loved being on stage, singing and dancing and performing. My mum was a dancer, so I think it was in the family. Okay. But my dad was a policeman, and he had very strict, I kind of almost want to say Victorian values, where very much like children are seen and not heard, elbows off the table, hold your knife and fork properly. But it was a lot more than that. And I think growing up, from the exterior, I was a really happy, energetic, confident child. But what was going on behind the door was so much of a different story. Now I'm happy to talk about it. It's not something that, bothers me now. But my dad was actually a very narcissistic child man, which to the exterior, he was a pillar of the community. He was in our local newspapers all the time. He was on national news, as he was quite a well-known policeman for doing certain cases. We upheld that kind of family value and standard, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a temper. He used the temper in sort of, various kind of violent ways. Looking back, the way that he spoke to my mum was very verbally, emotionally abusive. My mum was such an incredible, beautiful human. But I suppose from a child's eyes, you don't see the sort of adult relationship. You just see mummy and daddy, and that's all you know, isn't it? And then growing up, unfortunately, I was also a victim of child sexual abuse that was done by my brother. So that was something else in our family that became a very big secret. I disclosed when I was 13 to one of my drama teachers at school. And I know now that one day has completely shaped the person who I became, because it was very quickly swept under the carpet by my dad, because obviously being a policeman, and didn't want that to be kind of, followed through. And then I think the most devastating thing for me as a 13-year-old was the one that had to apologize for, in their words, making up stories and just bringing shame on the family. So it was swept under the carpet, and we were told never to speak of it again. Wow. And I think in one moment, and I had to apologize to my brother for that. So I think in that one moment, I never to trust my own voice, never learned to trust my own mind, that, secrets were a thing, and we didn't talk about stuff. So I think on that day at the age of 13, I just shut everything down. I literally put it in a box and never opened it again.
And I can tell that. I can tell that as well, because, when something like that happens to a young person that's impressionable and you say something that's your truth, and it gets dismissed, it stops you from taking anything further, and you start questioning yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's what led me down to, I don't want to say a dark path, because actually the reason why dance became my absolute passion in life is because it was the only place that I ever felt safe. I think going to dance studio, training, I knew I was good, and I knew that it was something I really wanted to do forever, like my career choice as a young kid. I sort of remember announcing when I was about 8, I'm going to be a professional dancer. It's all I ever wanted. So I think I put all energy, focus into that. But then obviously relationships, as I started to grow older, as a teenager, sadly, I got into relationships that were just a model image of who my dad was, because I guess all I knew.
Yeah. Because you're attracted like a magnet to the same energy that's within the home as you're growing up.
Absolutely. And I think there's such sort of truth behind, I think people that are more overbearing, narcissistic, they can sniff out people that are vulnerable and people that are, I don't like the word broken, but I suppose fragile. And I do feel like I was that person. But I just think it's so interesting when I look back at myself to see how externally confident I was.
Yeah.
But the world I was sort of navigating inside was so different. And that's only as an adult, I think now I've seen that.
Yeah. Can I just explore a little bit there, Kim, with the relationships? Because I've had a similar time myself and I just kind of want to see, I suppose, compare. So when you were in a relationship, how did that present yourself? Was it a need for love? Was it a kind of dismiss of all the red flags that were showing up? Did you see the red flags?
Oh, absolutely not. I didn't see any red flags. And it definitely was all of the above. Like, I think I was seeking some sort of validation. I was seeking some sort of human connection that I hadn't had. So my dad was never a cuddly dad. I don't even remember sitting on his knee. I don't remember him telling me he loved me. Like, there was no affection like that at all. It was very, very Victorian. So I think I'm seeking that kind of connection, but I didn't understand red flags. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't think any of us did when we were children.
We didn't know what a red flag was.
It wasn't even a word back then, was it? Red flag. No, me, that was just something in as a lifeguard thing at the swimming pool when the red flag went up, don't go swimming kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think as a teenager, one of my first sort of real, I guess, your silly little school relationships, but I think my first serious relationship, I was 16, nearly 17. He was 14 years older than me.
My gosh.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that's indicative to itself that I don't know. I just guess, I hate it when people say daddy issues because that really, I think, is very shallow. But I think it is more around the fact that because you're seeking someone to, I guess, kind of be a leader, be someone that's a masculine kind of energy that's support you and look after you, embrace you. And I think I never had that.
I respect you as well.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that relationship just took probably the darkest turn. And I think everything that I'd experienced as a young child with my brother, again, I think all of that innocence had been removed. There was no natural exploring around sexuality because it had been removed. It wasn't a choice.
Okay.
So then obviously my first relationship just became very volatile in all ways that, really did impact me.
And you're so young. Gosh.
And that period of my life has always been the one that I really struggled to, in therapy for years, to kind of forgive myself for, because, when we're 17, we think we're adults and grown up. And you think, oh, but I should have known better. I was 17, I was a grown up. Yeah. But then what's really interesting is over the years, teaching my own students and seeing them at different stages of my life when they were 13, when they were 16, 17. And I think, oh my God, you're so innocent and you're so young.
Of course.
I think it was only wise that I started to give myself a little bit of compassion. Yeah. And seeing that just a child, and he was 14 years and should have known better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I obviously had other agendas, but and I think, going from that into another relationship that was kind of more controlling, I guess, on the controlling aspect, what I did, who I spoke to, what I wore. And then I ended up marrying someone who is exactly like my dad as well. So,
oh gosh, yeah. And at what age were you when you got married?
So I got married I was 25.
Yeah. Okay.
And my husband was 5 years older than me.
Right.
And a carbon copy of my dad in terms of the narcissism. He was never ever violent physically, but I think one of the things which is where it's led me to doing the work I do today is language. Like, I think for me personally, bruises, wounds have healed, but I think words have impacted me and my personality and who I am on such a deep level that I think that's why I'm so cautious about language skills today.
Absolutely, 100%. I think words can hurt so much more deeper than wounds and bruises, to be fair.
And I think you recall them, you know, you hear them over and over again in all different sort of aspects of your life, and they do pop up, but it's taken a lot of years to undo that. I often sort of, the first 27 years of my life was all about other people's control, narcissism, abuse. And it wasn't until I was 27, I met my now husband, that obviously my life kind of took a better turning. And then I guess for me, that's when the healing had to kind of, you know, well, I guess the downfall of my breakdown had to happen for me to then sort of do the healing process and undo everything a bit again. So
I think these breakdowns are for a purpose, and it is literally to break you down, to rebuild you back up again, even as stronger and a healed version of yourself. I'm guessing your husband supported you in that as well, your now current husband.
Yeah, and I think he did, but I think, again, me being me, I tried to do so much of it on my own because I struggle to, I mean, he knows I trust him, but I struggle to let people in.
Yeah.
I think as a child, I learned very, very young that, you know, you're in this world on your own, and you're your own kind of savior, you're your cheerleader and your own supporter. And I think I learned to be very resourceful, even as a very young child, to self-soothe and kind of look after myself, I suppose. So I think, you know, I do struggle to let people in, not so much now, but even when I have a breakdown, you know, it was very much kind of laid out as, oh, I'm just burnt out, I'm doing too many hours, I was running my business, it's working. So I think even back then I wasn't really fully allowing myself to admit how dark I felt.
Yeah.
He obviously knows I'm in therapy, and I have been for years, because I think, you know, I find it's important for me to have that space. And we're still, you know, even after 9 years, we're still unpicking bits that I still haven't quite unpicked yet.
Yeah.
But he does support me, and he has been my absolute rock from everything. So yeah, I am grateful to him. I really am.
And I'm so happy to hear that as well. And I think the work that you're doing now, because of you wouldn't be doing that work without your experiences, because I think what it taught you was that you protect others. It's almost like protecting yourself and giving you the support that you needed as a child. You're now giving it to others. So tell me a bit more about what you're doing now, Kim, because I know you were a ballet dancer, and you've had your own school, and that was very successful. What made you change? What was that pivotal moment where you thought, right, this has to go. I'm now going to go and do something that's really important for me?
Yeah, it's been gradual, actually. I think, you know, again, hindsight is such a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Of course.
And I think over the last couple of years, I think I've always had what I call like little whispers of knowing that I kind of wanted to do something different. But again, it was a lack of self-confidence and that lack of like thinking I can do something different, because the dance industry has been my entire life. You know, it's been 45 years of my life is all I've done is dance.
Wow.
And it's sport dance. But I think it was obviously having my own breakdown 10 years ago, doing self-development work, starting to look inward, and then making these connections to my childhood to now.
Yeah.
Teaching children, it gave me a very different lens to look at them and realize that everything that we do with children is going to leave an imprint, an invisible mark on them. So I started to really assess my language that I was using, the way that I was supporting and nurturing, and giving them the one thing I always call it, a safe space to know that they could be free to explore who they were. There was going to be no judgments. And look, the dance industry is beautiful, but it's also a very dark industry as well. And there's so much to it that is wrong.
Yeah.
And again, myself, you know, of coming through working professionally, you know, most people that are my age, we've all got stories, horrific stories of the things that we've been put through dancer.
Yeah. I recently had one on the podcast, Kim, and it was about the eating disorders and the struggle to, you know, and the reward if you didn't eat, and if you did lose weight, you know, you were allowed to dance if you were thinner than the other one. Shocking.
And, it still goes on today. And I think this is something where I've started doing a lot of work around that. But I think it was more about, for me, with my own dance school, I really wanted to make sure that the children that were under my sort of name, under my school, I really wanted to ensure that they felt that they were safe, that they could talk about anything, because we don't know what these kids, just like myself, we don't know what these kids are dealing with behind closed doors. And again, I'm very conscious of the ones that are very externally, because it's not always the quiet ones. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to provide that. So I think I got more interested in about how we teach, educate, communicate with children.
Yeah.
And then it was actually during those delightful months of lockdown when, I know it's like a swear
everyone
word,
loves them.
Yeah. I think it was during those months where I had some students that would show up so well put together. Their hair was neatly done. Their uniform was always on. And within a first sort of 6 weeks of I guess it was like a fun, exciting experiment, all being locked in our houses.
Yeah.
And we used to teach on Zoom multiple hours a week. So we'd see the kids in their living rooms or their bedrooms or their gardens. And then we started to see a real decline in the kids that would always be pristine, just showing up looking sad. They didn't have their hair on. Some of them were in their pajamas, and you were like, these kids are not okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I started doing some additional work with them rather than teaching them their tap class or their ballet class. I started doing some other work that I was interested in. At that time, I'd also studying various things like NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming, counseling skills, just to give me more, because again, it was helping me through my own recovery and my own healing.
Of course, yeah.
Giving me tools to help the kids. And I started doing some different language shifts in the way I was explaining things and talking to them. And I started using a lot of reflective teaching, reflective work.
Yeah.
Started to see the kids started to sparkle again, and they started to look forward to coming online and seeing me. And it was almost like they realized that this was a nice, safe space for them to come.
Good.
So that sparked a little bit of I could do something more with this. So then in 2021, I started looking at maybe kind of diving into doing some mindset work with children. Too, I launched my other company, the Butterfly Mind, which is predominantly dance mindset well-being coach for the industry. And I started doing workshops up and down the country for dancers, for young dancers in different dance schools and settings.
Yeah.
And then over the last few years, that's now massively evolved, and I've peeled back, I guess, more layers of what I really want to do. And actually, majority of my work now is I educate teachers, adjudicators, examiners, all around how they communicate with children and how they start making their studio culture safer. And
amazing.
Shining a light on things like over-sexualization of children, the misuse of social media, the language that we use when we're teaching children. So, and then obviously the beginning of 2026, I sold my dance academy because I believe, and I'm that passionate about this business, that now I've gone into this full time and I'm dedicating all my time and energy to really getting the education out there for teachers, for dance academies, for events around protecting children whilst they're young and giving them a safe space.
That's amazing, Kim.
It's all kind of interlinked so much, but it's been it's been lucky for me to see, I guess myself, I'm not a great believer that we should never look back. I genuinely do think we should take a peek in the rearview mirror now and again. And I think looking back is what allows us to see, one, how far we've come, but two, what's made us who we are and how we can do better.
And also it gives you an idea, I suppose, when you're working with the children, where you were in your childhood and how this could impact on the children of today. So you're actually helping the next generation to either hopefully avoid or process or deal with their lifestyle now, so that hopefully in the future they'll be, not in the same situation that you were. But I am a great believer, Kim, that pain is inevitable in life. And it helps to build us, not destroy us. I mean, some people, unfortunately, it does. But if you can educate yourself and learn and grow from it and help others, then you're kind of getting to that self-actualization stage of being able to contribute rather than just take or avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of my kind of mottos that's kept me going over the last few years, excuse me, is I wanted to turn something that was really ugly into something really beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that slogan has kept me going. And that's the reason why I get up every day and do what I do.
Yeah.
And I think, creating that space for children is so vital. And dance is such a beautiful way to communicate with music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think over the last 4 years of doing workshops with children, because I actually do in-person workshops with them, and we do a lot of what we call somatic work. So a lot of movement that allows them to release. They don't know it, but they're like energies and traumas and stress from their body. And over the last 5 years, I think we've had around 6 disclosures during the workshop.
Wow. But I know it's sad. It is really sad. But isn't it great that they felt so safe to be able to come and disclose that?
And I think the first time it happened, I won't lie, I think I cried in the car all the way home because I was devastated that I felt I've put this child in a position where she's told this, disclosure, and I did that and I created that. And it was only through sitting talking to my therapist that she was able to allow me to see, but look at what you created. That child, like you just said, felt so safe in that moment that she then knew it was safe enough to speak out.
Absolutely.
We managed to make sure that the authorities, obviously I worked with the principal of that school that then got the child the right system, care.
Yeah.
But it's happened, as I say, I think it's about 6 times in 4 years. Yeah. It doesn't get any easier. But like you say, it's just, I feel, I guess, blessed to know that in that moment, that child feels safe enough. And if she didn't speak out or he didn't speak out, they would still be stuck in that situation. So.
Absolutely.
It's hard, but it's important.
That's an amazing platform that you've built there so that young people can have a safe space to be able to talk about the negative things that are happening at home.
Yeah. And I think it's so important. I don't think we give children enough. We don't give them enough kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Credit.
Yeah, credit. Thank you. That they're still human beings.
Absolutely.
And I don't like the dismissal sort of comments like, oh, well, they're just kids. And the one that really gets my back up is when I hear people going, oh, it's just being a teenager. I mean, what is just being a teenager? Teenagers, 2026, I wouldn't want to be one. Gosh,
no.
It's hard for them.
I have to admit, Kim, I did use that for my children. And for me, it was a way of explaining their behavior rather than delving in and actually having that hard conversation with them. It was quite an avoidant one. And I'm guilty of that, unfortunately, as a mum. But, I can completely see where it's come from, because then I've had conversations with my children. Now they're in their 20s and the pain that they were going through, and I wasn't able to recognize that. But I think it's great actually that you are approaching the parents and approaching the teachers as well and educating them to be able to identify that.
Well, I literally launched, I think it was only about 4 weeks ago that I launched my parent workshop. Because again, for the last few years, so many people have said to me jokingly on the side, because I did teacher trainings and I did student workshops. They were like, oh, you're not going to do one for parents, aren't you? And I was like, oh, maybe one. And it was becoming and I was like, actually, do you know what? Realistically, there's always been a bit of a running joke about dance schools that, if we didn't have the parents, we'd be a lot happier running our schools, because, parents can be very sort of expectant of their, children and the dance school. And at the end of the day, without the parents, we wouldn't have clients, so we wouldn't have a dance school. But, there's, I think, an entitlement at the moment around what they want their kids to achieve, and it is becoming quite hard. Yeah. So I think I wanted to educate the parents on actually what can you do to support your child that will actually help to support your teachers.
Yeah.
So rather than battling against them. So I've run a couple now and they've gone down, I will say, really well. I mean, I've had parents in tears and I've not forced them into tears, but I think just from asking them some really powerful coach style questions and asking them to be in their 7-year-old or 10-year-old's body and see it from their perception. And I think that's got some parents really emotional, thinking, I've never allowed myself, like you just said, I've never allowed myself to sit and go, but what's going on for my child?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see that, I don't know, a friendship fallout. Oh, it's just a friend. You'll be friends again next week. But in that moment, that friendship to 8-year-old child is their whole world.
Absolutely.
And I think I kind of call it my superpower. I guess this is where I don't have children. Sadly, I wasn't able to have children. But in a way, like you say, I see that as but I see it as a blessing in one respect because I've dealt with the grief of not being able to be a mum. And that happened sadly when I was in my 20s. And that's just through an illness. I can't have kids. But I think now I look and go, but it's a blessing because I can actually allow myself to organically go back into my 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old self and try and understand what did a child need at that age group without having, I guess, that maternal mum, I guess that layer of I am a mum, so this is my bias around my child. Sure. I don't have that. I have a very unbiased opinion. So I think that helps sometimes.
Definitely. No, I think it does, because you do become biased when you become a mum, but you also become very busy and handling about 20 plates at one time. And that does give us that kind of ignorance, I suppose, to explore further how our children are coping, because it becomes a very kind of survival mode. Everyone needs to go off to school and get fed and this, that and the other. And it becomes very murky, I would say, when you're a parent. But it's really interesting as well. Sorry, you were talking about the parents. I've always had this preconception of mums that take their kids to dance school, that it's because of the mum's need or the parents' need rather more than the children's need in some circumstances. Kim, would you agree, or would you say that's probably a pile of poop and say no, it's not that at all?
No, you're absolutely right. I would say there's a good 60 to 70% of, let's call them mums, because obviously not so much dads, but I'd say a lot of dance mums that either did dance when they were younger and they want the same for their child, better opportunities.
Sure.
Or I have spoken to some parents when they say they didn't get the opportunity to dance because they weren't allowed to or they couldn't afford it. So therefore they want their child. Of course. I do think, and this is a question I ask in my parent workshop, and I say to them, like, when you're encouraging, let's call it encouraging rather than pushing, but when you're encouraging your child to do the exams and auditions and competitions and all these events, like, is it because you want that for your child, or is it because you want that for your child's self?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I like that.
Yeah. And I think it just, most of my coaching style is based around reflection work. And I never always seek for them to answer. I love to just ask questions that's going to get their cogs whirring and get them thinking. Because I think when we inner reflect, we already have the answers, but we just don't allow ourselves to pause and look for them. I think, like you just said, life gets busy and we look externally for the reasons why, but we never really stop to pause and think, well, actually, what is the real reason for X, Y, Z? And I think since my breakdown, I've become such an inward reflective person.
Yeah.
That I can now sit and see my flaws and happily be open to admit, like, that was my problem. Like, I had that issue. That was my bias, or that was my judgment, and I need to work on that.
Yeah.
Which doesn't always go down well with other people, because I think sometimes I challenge them. But, I think it's really important that we do that work on ourselves. But I think as an adult, when you're working with children or you have your own children, I think we do need to hit the pause button sometimes and just ask that question of what's going on for them right now and what do they need me to be?
Yeah,
and I
definitely.
think the most powerful questions we can ever ask a child is, what do you need from me right now?
Yeah. No, I like that. And it's really interesting as well, Kim, because looking at integrated family systems therapy, I think that's the name of it. It's a book that I came across, and I've spoken about it on my podcast before. It's also about asking the children within you at the different levels of trauma or abuse or whatever happened within you. it's also sometimes that child comes up and you have to go, okay, what is it that you need right now? And, how can I help you?
Yeah. That's such a powerful thing. And I think it's not a lot of people know. I myself have definitely experienced, I think in the early years of when I first kind of hit my lowest point, I was experiencing some really odd physical kind of symptoms.
Okay.
I would feel like I was here, but I wasn't here. And I felt like I was very little. And I remember experiencing on one occasion that I remember being in my car and I remember thinking, I can't drive home because I'm not old enough.
Wow.
And it was our feeling that overcame me. And it all came from, I have a very heightened sense of smell. So a lot of my triggers are from smells. Right. And I think I'd obviously smelt something and it ported me back to being very young, and I got stuck, and I didn't realize this was a thing. And I got stuck in the moment of being this very young 10-year-old self. And I went and sat in my car and I was like, I can't drive home because I'm not old enough. I don't have a license.
Wow. And that's really interesting.
Yeah. It was scary, like really scary.
Yeah.
Luckily, I managed to kind of get myself compass mentis enough to ring my best friend and talk to her. And she kind of managed to just talk me back into reality, because it was weird. I was here, but I wasn't here.
Yeah, but that was almost like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, hugely. And I think I really dived into that with my therapist and then started to understand the inner child and the inner child work. And I do now. And, sometimes it will pop up at different ages. She will come back. And I just allow myself to sit and have conversation with her and be like, what do you want me to know right now? What is it that you haven't healed from, or what can I do right now to heal this part of me? And I know some people roll their eyes and think it's woo-woo stuff, but I think if you're open to it, it's really powerful. Really powerful.
It is, definitely. And I've actually used it as well, Kim. So I wouldn't class it as woo-woo. I would class it as a form of being able to get in touch with your inner wounds, your inner hurts, because when you experience trauma as a child, you do get stuck at that energetic age. And that does pop back up again as you get older when the same incidents or similar incidents occur. So I think if nobody's ever tried it, go and try it first and see what they think, because I think it's a great way of healing your inner child and also bringing yourself together and reintegrating yourself.
And I think it's a really beautiful way for you to recognize how you are with other people and in situations and scenarios. For me, for example, I do not like confrontation. I don't like people raising their voices.
Yeah.
Can't argue back. It's not that I'm being defiant, but I do go into a complete freeze or fawn.
Yeah.
I stop. I can't find words. There's nothing for me to speak because my throat tightens. And again, that's just, growing up, you would never, ever dare to argue back with my dad. Yeah. So he would shout, he would raise his voice, and you just stood and accepted it. So I got used to freezing, and even freezing in terms of if my dad was downstairs and I was upstairs and I heard him coming up, I would almost make yourself silent and invisible. So I've learned to minimize myself in a physical form as well as verbally.
Yeah.
As an adult, I totally understand where that comes from. And now I'm able to challenge myself to say, actually, I don't have to freeze. I don't have to fawn. I can have a voice, but I'm going to do it in quite a sensible and calm way.
Absolutely.
But I do not accept someone shouting at me or being abusive.
Yeah.
But it's recognizing why am I like that, and why do I not have the need to argue back with someone? So I think it's like you said, I think all of us have the ability to understand ourselves more now. And I think it's made me a better person. I definitely think it's made me a better person as an adult, for sure.
Well, definitely, because you've educated yourself and learned and reflected and learned and reflected. And that helps to rebuild you into a much stronger version where you are able to advocate for other people, where you are able to speak on behalf of other people that have gone through similar experiences as yourself, Kim. So I think that's a really wonderful thing for you to have done. And I always say that, your pain was somebody else's gain, because now you're able to put it into a way where you're helping and healing others, which is fantastic.
And I think that's always one of the hardest things, I think, for anyone who's ever gone through any trauma or is facing it and thinking, I don't know if I can do this work. I don't think I can unpick that and then put it all back together. And I think it's that question of like, the why questions. And I think I know so many people that have had traumas that have had that, but why? Why did I have to go through that?
Yeah.
Why did that have to be part of my story? And like you say, like, why did I have to go through that pain? What was it for? And I definitely went through a period of time when I did the why questions a lot.
Yeah.
But now, as I say, like, no, would I choose to go back and live that same life again? No, of course, nobody would want to put themselves in that situation. But now I've learned to actually go, but I'm really grateful, because the only way I can accept and move forward is by having that gratitude and doing something good with it.
Absolutely.
And that's why now I have my voice. I mean, I actually go back to school essentially in September, and I start now training to become a qualified counsellor therapist, because I want to, I guess, give back. So obviously strengthen the work I'm already doing, but I definitely want to give back to the years that I've been having therapy. I now want to open that up for other people and to help them to get to a place where they feel peaceful and calm with themselves, to know that, you know, who they are, like you say, it was for a reason, and let's find the good in that rather than sitting in that negative, why me, because it's a really lonely place when you sit in that spot all the time.
It definitely is, Kim, but I'm just so pleased for you, and I'm so glad that you're moving forward and adding some more tools to your toolkit by going back and doing the counselling and the therapy course, because that is so needed in this world right now. And I think you're going to do it, be an amazing counsellor.
Oh, thank you. And I just think I advocate it. I say to people, I think if we all had therapy, the world would be so much of a nicer place.
Do you know something? I totally agree with you.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's so important. And I talk about it openly with people, because there's still, I think, a bit of a stigma around having a therapist, a counsellor. If we were in America, you'd be weird if you didn't have one.
That's true. It's so very true.
Normal for them to have a therapist.
Yeah.
Whereas we are, you know, stiff upper lip British people. It's like, oh, if we don't talk to people about our problems, we keep it to ourselves. And I think back to my own childhood and think, well, that didn't serve me any good back then. So I definitely know that talking is the way forward. So when I do work with students and teachers, I say to them, like, find someone, talk to someone. I mean, I offer one-to-one service, obviously, for teachers to do coaching with them, but I always say I advocate with children. I say, find someone you can trust and talk to them. It doesn't matter what it's about. It doesn't matter if it's just a friendship that you've had a row with, but talking is so cathartic. And I just advocate all of it a bit more. I really do.
I totally agree with you. And I think talking is so much better, because once it's out there, it's not in your head all the time. But I do think it's progressive. And I think, you know, you need to, I don't think you can fix it overnight. And I think it takes years. And I know a lot of women, including myself, that have been on this journey now for years, and it doesn't end. I think we're just going to be lifelong learners, learning, educating and growing. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think you're always going to peel back another layer of the onion, aren't you? And as you know, you think you've done the work. I've definitely healed that. And then all of a sudden something else pops up and you think, oh, we're going to go back there and redo that one again. So, and find something else.
Absolutely.
I think that just it strengthens you all the time. The more work you do on yourself, it just gets better and better.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I just want to wish you well for your counselling course starting in September, Kim. And just thank you again for being on the show today, because your story is very incredible. And I am loving the work that you're doing right now.
Much.
I don't believe it's going to stop there. I think it's going to grow and grow for you. So congratulations. Definitely.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd be really grateful if you could subscribe, leave a review and share it with anyone you think might benefit from this conversation. Every subscription, review and share helps the podcast reach more people and keeps these important conversations going. And if you're wondering what's next, I'd love to welcome you to the Coffee Chat Etc. community, where you'll find coaching courses, our membership, and a supportive space filled with real conversations, encouragement, and inspiration for your next chapter. You can find everything at coffeechatecc.com. Until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and remember, every conversation has the power to create connection. See you soon.